Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Patty. I'm 22 years old, a recent new grad living in Northern California. So today's video also, if you want to say hello to Iris, here she is. She's my dog. Today's video is gonna be a small collective book haul of some books that I have been collecting over the past month. Whether it's from Book of the Month, just like books that I've gotten from travel and whatnot. So yeah, I'm excited and let's get started. So here's my stack of books. This is me trying to take my thumbnail picture. So I'm gonna attempt to turn this around without, dumping any of them. So I'm not gonna go in the order of when I got them. I'm just gonna go in the order of, smallest to largest. So starting off with My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. I bought this book about 2-3 weeks ago when I was visiting my boyfriend in Boston. I've been wanting to read this for a while just because I'm a fan of Emily Ratajkowski. I think she is such a cool person in pop culture, and also just because of gone into the world of poetry, literature, she's not afraid to voice her opinion and whatnot. So I'm just really interested in who she is as a person and what her upbringing was like, especially, being a somewhat over-sexualized person in Hollywood. I just wanted to hear her story and how she came to be. And I'm currently reading this and I'm almost basically halfway done. It's a super easy read, small, writing style is really quick. I actually really like the writing style in general and just how descriptive she is, and I assume she had a ghostwriter help her. If not, then her writing style is really amazing. But either way, I'm really enjoying this book. I think it sheds a lot of light on why she is the way she is, how her upbringing affected her life decisions, and choosing to become a model and present herself in the Blurred Lines music video. But yeah, it's really interesting. I totally recommend, especially because it's such a small and quick read. The second book is also a book I'm currently reading. I'm not very far into it. I'm literally 20 pages in or something, but it is the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I bought this last weekend, or this past weekend actually, when I was on my way home to Southern California for Thanksgiving. I can never resist buying a book at the Books Inc. that is in the San Francisco airport. They always just have the best covers, and they're not overly priced. They're really well priced books. And I just couldn't resist this cover because it's just so pretty. So here it is. But yeah, I haven't gotten the chance to see the movie yet. My roommates, when they come back on Tuesday from their Thanksgiving break with their families, I think we're gonna go watch the movie, but I'm hoping that I can somehow finish this entire book by either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and then we could go watch the movie, because all the other Hunger Games books that I read them before watching the movie, so I feel like I have to do that with the prequel as well. So yeah, I'll potentially put this in a reading vlog and also let you guys know my reaction to reading this as well as watching the movie afterwards and how accurate it was in my opinion. The next book is a romance book. It's called The 7-Year Slip. If anyone is a fan of Haley Pham, Sarah Caroli, which if you're on BookTube, you definitely have to know who they are because they're the biggest booktubers. But I think I first heard about this book, and Rachel Catherine. I think Haley Pham was the first person I saw that talked about this book, and just the premise of it sounded really interesting. And I picked it up at Half Price Books because I had wanted to sell a bunch of my books that I either read and didn't like, or I bought and just don't think I'm ever going to read them. So I sold them, and then I exchanged the money that I got from that for this book. And essentially, if you haven't heard of this book yet or haven't heard what it's about, it's magical realism romance. A woman inherits an apartment from, I think, her aunt who passes away, and she always described it as has always been a magical place. Crazy things happen. It's full of magic, and she always thought that her aunt was saying oh, it's magical because she makes it a magical place. It's not. It's theoretical, not truly a magical place. But once she inherits the apartment, she realizes that every so often the apartment goes back in time 7 years. And in 7 years ago, a man lived in that apartment whom she meets and falls in love with. I'm really excited to read this. I don't know when I plan to read this, but I'm excited. The next book, this is another book that I bought the last time I went to Boston, and also bought it at the San Francisco airport. So this is Divine Rivals. If you haven't heard of this book, I think you're living under a rock, because it's a really big book right now, especially in, you know, people who are into romantasy, fantasy, romance books. But Divine Rivals, I honestly don't know too much about it besides the fact that there's like the magical aspect of this book is the letter writing. I think that's the only real magical part about this book, and it's enemies to lovers, journalism, stuff like that. So I'm really excited to read this. The next book, somewhat related to fantasy, romance, romantasy, and another big book that if you haven't heard of it, you're living under a rock. But Fourth Wing. I feel like everyone I know who has read this book has told me, like, you need to read it next, you need to read it next. Like, one of my friends, Cassandra, like, she texts me every, like, few weeks and is like, have you read Fourth Wing yet? Have you read Fourth Wing yet? But I actually haven't gotten around to reading it yet, because I just finished the tandem read for Empire Storms and Tower of Dawn for the Throne of Glass series, so I feel like I need a little break from fantasy, especially because those were such chunky books, and almost all the books I've read this year have been fantasy, so I'm trying to, you know, stray away from fantasy for a little bit. Not because I don't love fantasy, I still love fantasy, but just because I feel like I need to branch out a little bit. So yeah, and Fourth Wing, people say it gives, like, you know, dystopian dragons. I hear I don't know if they're considered factions, but that's the word that pops into my head, even though that's more of like a Divergent thing. Just like there are different types of factions in this world where, you know, you have to pick a career, or like sometimes it picks you and whatnot. And I think the main character wants to become a writer, but she ends up for some reason becoming a dragon writer, and, you know, like super dangerous, people die. But yeah, I'm super excited to read this. It's also pretty chunky. And then Iron Flame is already out, which is the second book in this series so far. So hopefully I read this sometime soon and then can get into Iron Flame, because I heard Iron Flame is really good as well. The next book was my November book of the month. It's the Helsinki Affair. I just realized there's nothing on the back, so I actually don't know what this is about, so let me read the description really quick and I'll give you a synopsis. Okay, so it says, it's the case of Amanda's lifetime, but solving it may require her to betray another spy, who just so happens to be her father. She's a CIA officer. Her father was a spy during the Cold War. Yeah, so it just seems like, you know, potential family betrayal, spy operative mission for the CIA between the US and potentially involving Russia. So, like I said, I am attempting to branch out a little bit from fantasy, and this sounded really interesting for the book of the month picks, so I got it. I, once again, don't know when I'm gonna get the chance to read this, but when I do, maybe I'll put it in the video. Second to last book, once again, branching out from fantasy. The last two books are not fantasy related, but None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I honestly don't know much about this book besides the fact that there's a podcaster involved and someone who's maybe obsessed with that podcaster, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens. But once again, I heard Haley Pham talk about this, so I trust her. So I decided to pick it up. The last book. And by the way, these last three books I bought through Book of the Month. So, and it's really interesting that 5 out of these 8 books are hardcovers, because I prefer paperbacks, but it just so happened that some of the books that I bought only come out in hardcover. So this is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. It's a murder mystery thriller. This girl ends up being the only one left in her family who wasn't murdered in their family home. And I have been wanting to branch out specifically into murder mystery thrillers, just because those types of movies are something that I'm really interested in. And I think I've only read like 1 or 2 in that genre like my whole life. So I think just branching into it would be really fun. And yeah, I hear Riley Sager is a really amazing author in this genre in particular. So I think this is one of his new books. So I'm really interested in getting into that. Those are all the books that I recently bought within like the past month and a half. And yeah, I will let you guys know if I end up reading any of them. I think the next video that I'm gonna film after this is reading the Hunger Games prequel and My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. If you want to watch me read those and then potentially get my reaction from finishing the Hunger Games prequel and then watching the movie, you can check that out in my new video. So yeah, thanks again so much guys for watching, and I will see you next time.